How do you conquer your fears? Well, one way to conquer fear is to remember your goals and your power. This is especially good for dealing with fears stemming from peer pressure, which particularly affected Herod. In Matthew chapter 14 verse 5, after John had condemned him for marrying his brother's wife, Herod was planning to kill him at Herodias' request, but he decided not to because he didn't want to upset the Jews, who believed he was a prophet. However, in Mark chapter 6 verses 26 to 27, after Herodias' daughter had asked for John's head, he complied because he had promised her anything she wanted in front of a crowd. If Herod had remembered his enthusiasm for John's sermons in Mark chapter 6 verse 20, he wouldn't have killed him or even thrown him in jail just because Herodias said so. It didn't matter what a murderous adulteress wanted. Plus, he was the king. Even if the Jews wished Herod dead, he had the authority to protect him and punish them for their evil plans. After all, there are other people with far less power who still stuck with what they believed in. In Daniel chapter 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego insisted, even when faced with death, that they wouldn't bow down to Nebuchadnezzar's statue. Also, Esther brought Haman to justice in Esther chapters 5 to 7, even though the king could have killed her for unauthorized entry into his court. These individuals were actually willing to die for what they believed in. There was no way they were going to be scared of anyone. Another way to conquer fear is to trust in God. Jeremiah tells us, "Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit." Jeremiah chapter 17 verses 7 to 8. For example, in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 45, the reason that David could fight a much larger man with a lot more armor without even the slightest bit of fear was because he trusted in God. He said, "Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defiled." 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 45. Even if the slingshot failed, David knew that God wouldn't let this man continue to blaspheme his name. Compare his attitude to that of Jeroboam. In 1 Kings chapter 11 verses 31 to 39, Ahijah promised Jeroboam that he would be the ruler of the 10 northern tribes. The future king knew what God had done for David and Solomon. He thought that the Israelites would eventually return to Jerusalem because they continued offering sacrifices there. So in 1 Kings chapter 12 verses 26 to 33, he created his own religion with temples in Bethel and Dan. He was so scared of the Israelites rejecting him that he completely changed their religious practices. My advice then is that we look inward and try to understand what we really want and what we really need. Fear comes when we don't know those things, and it convinces us to look to others to understand ourselves. Then we are subject to peer pressure and intimidation. However, if we truly know ourselves, we won't need anyone to tell us who we are. We're Christians who serve a God who can protect us from any imaginable threat. And that is where I'm going to stop with this Bible Q&A. How do you conquer your fears? You conquer your fears by understanding who you are and what you're able to do. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.